what's happening is that in advance of some legislation that we passed in the Texas legislature, a lot of cities and counties are taxing to the max. They're running up the tax bill on local taxpayers, and it's happening across the state. One of the places, surprisingly, that it's happening is Wichita Falls, because we did some calculations, and it looks like between the county and the city that the average tax bill is going up 8.5%. Now, look, I don't know about you, but I don't think the average homeowner is getting an 8.5% raise this year. But city and county government is, and unfortunately, that's happened in more than one town and county across the state. Well, I mean, what happens is if you look at a homeowner in Wichita Falls, the average home's about $125,000. Well, guess what? They're going to pay $143 more this year just because of what the city and the county are doing. And the problem is once that starts, every year it gets higher. So the base now is up because they basically taken it all to the stops under the old law. Now I call this smashing the taxpayers because it's a maximum smash. And the problem is that, and once it happens, everybody pays that much or more every year from now on. And that's what has me speaking out about this across the state. Well, they got to stop taking so much of the taxpayers' money. They have to look at priorities and say, I'm not going to raise it to the stops this year because look, for a home that's only worth $125,000, $150 is real money. It means one less time you go out, one less time you eat, one less time you go to a movie, whatever. And but it's they shouldn't be doing it. And actually, Wichita Falls ISD had one of the worst records in the state. The Texas Education Agency had to stop them from raising taxes by 20 pennies until they got busted on that. The TEA basically said you can't do it. Your highest tax rate is 97 pennies. So listen, it's time for the Wichita Falls people that are elected officials start respecting their taxpayers. And I know Senator Fallon agrees with that. He's the state senator that voted for SB2 that covers Wichita Falls. Because I just spoke with him. Listen, the taxpayers' ability to pay has to be in the minds of elected officials that are raising tax rates and setting these type of very high tax increases. And that's the problem that I really want to point out because, again, the average tax bill on the city and county was going to be $1,684. It's now going to be $1,825 just in 1 year. Well, what happened is that we saw a burst of this around the state. El Paso claimed it, Webb County, Travis County, where Austin is. Everybody said, oh, we have to give ourselves a raise. Well, you know what? No. The answer is no, okay? Because, that's the sorriest excuse I've seen for a tax increase. I don't care whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, where you live or what you look like, who you sleep with. That's just garbage for saying that I have to give myself a raise, so I'm now giving a tax increase. That actually backfired in Laredo and Webb County. After that the citizens had time to get together and organize and stop it. Unfortunately, these tax rates have already been set. So what I say to the taxpayers in Wichita Falls is remember this, and the next election, next year or 2 years from now, keep bringing this up because raises should be not done at the taxpayer's expense. It should be because you need them. It's merit-based. You're trying to keep good people employed for good reasons. And the other thing that really makes me mad about this implementation is after SB2 goes into effect, all Wichita Falls City Council and the mayor had to do was take it to the voters in November. We have an idea. We want to do a pay raise, whatever. And the voters could have said either yay or nay, but they're afraid. And that's why they've jacked up tax rates and tax bills as high as they could before it. It's not the way government's going to work starting in 2020. And the taxpayers will have their vote. So that's my message again to Wichita Falls taxpayers. You'll have a shot at voting on this stuff starting next year and going forward. And but sadly, they decided to smash it while they had a chance, and that's why I'm speaking out. Well, look, all right. Well, I'll use some numbers that are Wichita Falls based. Okay. What happened was in 2018, the tax rate was about 73 cents, which is high. You know, I mean, it's like Fort Worth and a few other towns have that type of high tax rate. But for example, Houston's only in the 50s. They raised it 3 pennies plus. So they juiced it up. They actually raised the tax rate. So that means the average home went from paying about $900 to now $983 in 1 year. That's what's happening here. And so what the state legislature said in a bipartisan vote was that we're going to lower the guidelines that you can make these raises in the future. And it was called the rollback rate, and that was 8%. It's down to 3.5%. And unfortunately, Wichita Falls decided to do a preemptive strike and just raise the rate now in advance of the law going into effect. Well, the problem with all this is that if you let government grow with money that is not allocated for a good purpose, then what happens is that money gets shoved into a reserve account or it gets wasted. And from what I understand, there were about 13 ballot initiatives in Wichita Falls recently, of which 12 out of 13 failed. So when the public gets a chance to vote on the priorities, they're a lot more critical than the elected officials are that are spending the money. And really what SB do is forces everybody together, because you lower how much you can raise it, and then you say, okay, you want to do something else, whether it's roads or whatever else, you go to the voters in November and say, approve it. And if the folks approve a tax increase, then as an economic conservative, I can't argue with that. But I wanted folks to get a chance to vote for it in November, and just like Senator Pat Fallon did, and the other 19 Republicans and 2 Democrats that ended up voting for the bill won it. So be on the lookout for elections in the future, but they should speak out, because this type of raising tax rates, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's why I'm calling out Wichita Falls city and county government for doing it.